Hi, I'm Crystal,
And I'm Karin.
and you're listening to the Rom-Com Detectives. Welcome to Rom-Com Detectives, Episode 8, Expired Karma, the next episode in our Mentalist unit. Today, Karin and I will be talking about the 5th episode of the first season of The Mentalist called Redwood.
This episode originally aired on October 28th, 2008.
God, every time we say that, I was just like baffled. Like, what were you? I don't even know what I was doing back in 2008. It's a long time ago. Okay, case briefing. This takes place in a small town called Redwood Point. And is that a fictional town?
There is an actual Redwood Point near San Francisco, but in the script, it does specify it's a small town on the northern coast.
Uh,
So there's a good chance this is a fictional town.
yeah. Okay. So when I saw this, I was like, wait. So they found the car at 5:30 in the morning, and then when Lisbon gets there, Jane makes a crack about how she's not a morning person. So how do you think they got there? So I mean, going back to the transportation thing, right? Like they had to have flown there. You can't
Uh,
just.
well, so she would have had to wake up early. She probably was notified. So she was probably notified early about the case and then had to drive a long time. And now she's just grumpy.
I guess San Francisco slash Sacramento is in the upper part of California, not because like Los Angeles is in the south, right?
Right,
So
right. So, yeah, if you're going north from Sacramento, in theory,
I guess they still could have drove. So
but they don't have a lot of the traveling back and forth in this episode, so
yeah, they actually like move their stuff to the small town to the sheriff's office. That's something they kind of abandon later. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we'll see a lot more traveling back and forth later, but this one, I don't know, makes it feel more like the pilot episode almost, just how they set up their shop and they just hang out there.
Yeah. I kind of liked when they did that.
It makes a lot more sense.
Okay, title relevance. Redwoods are a type of tree that are prevalent in Northern California, and the remote setting plays a big part in the case.
So the victim and cause of death, the victim is Cara Palmer. She's about 21 years old, and she was stabbed and left for dead under her car, and her friend is missing. The motive was jealousy and lust.
Guest stars, I only noted two that were kind of notable. There's W. R. Brown from Deadwood, and there's Michael O'Neill, who he played the sheriff. He had actually a really long list of credits and things like that. So he's been a lot of things, usually military or sheriff or some kind of law enforcement. I think I remember him from a movie from the 90s too. I have to go back and look. But he's been in Jack Ryan and The West Wing. And actually seeing that he was on The West Wing made me watch the pilot of The West Wing because I've been listening to Rob Lowe's podcast and he talks about it a lot. So I was like, I had already been interested, and so seeing that he was in this, I was like, I'll just watch the first episode, which I actually kind of remembered. So I guess I must have watched it when it first aired.
Interesting. I've noted just a note. I had a couple other podcasts where the hosts are first time viewers. They both confused this sheriff with Sheriff McAllister from episode 2. Like they thought it was
Oh,
the same guy.
I mean, I guess they do kind of look similar. They both have that. Hey, it's that actor kind
Yeah,
of look to
totally.
them. Okay, Jane's skills in the episode. He does another failed group reading. And this one, we'll talk about it later. But I thought this one was pretty amusing, and I didn't really understand the point of it. So we'll get into that later. Sleight of hand, reading body language, and he also helps with memory recovery. All right, let's get into the episode breakdown. So the episode opens, as we said, in a town in a mountain town, and because the sheriff called them, I guess, because he only has 4 deputies and he doesn't really seem to know what to do. And this becomes a constant point of contention between him and Lisbon because I feel like Lisbon stopped doing this at a certain point, but in the first season, especially, like she would always like lay down like her territorial boundaries
Yeah.
as soon as they got on the case. She'd be like, "I'm sorry, but we don't help. We just take over."
But they also in these early episodes, the local law enforcement has a lot more involvement. Like,
Yeah,
he's going with them everywhere.
he's like an escort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes sense since like a lot of times they're in a small town, so they must just be really concerned and want to help out and stuff like that. So 2 girls were seen leaving a tavern at 1 a.m. and then because they were at an engagement party for one of the girls, and then they like I said earlier, their car was found at 5:30 a.m. in the forest, and then the CBI was called and then they arrived. And so when Lisbon tells him that they're gonna take over, they're not there to help out, Jane tells him that she's not a morning person. Nothing pisses off someone more than being spoken about like this. So Jane makes some observations at the car. The battery is dead, and the sheriff says that there's no gas, so they had left the car running whenever they stopped at night. There's makeup scattered in the car, and the how I like this scene because it's one of those things where it's just like a hide and seek kind of thing, like where Jane just like states the obvious, and the guy is just like, "Of course we," and he
Yeah,
proves them wrong.
that reaction is gold.
So yeah, the hound keeps telling the deputy that he's like where he needs to be, but they can't find anyone. So Jane asks, "Oh, did you look under the car? Or was it Jane or was it Joe? I think it was Jane." I put down. And he's like, "Of course we looked under the car." And then obviously he didn't, right? So they look underneath and Kara's down there. So the person missing is Nicole Gilbert. So they start a search for her instead of both of the girls. And so now they're looking for a murderer.
Yes, it's important to note that Nicole was the fiance, so it was her party.
Yeah.
And Kara is her best friend who died. So the sheriff says that Kara was a really nice girl, church-going family, and that Nicole was the troubled soul with a tough life, but they're like family. Nicole basically has grown up with Kara.
Yeah. So the sheriff had a really emotional, I think, reaction when he saw the body. He seemed really upset. Like, and not just that like they didn't think to look under the car, but he looked like upset because he does reveal, like you just said, that he knew them, right? So
Yeah, it's a pretty close community.
Lisbon asked for an opinion from one of the deputies, and he makes some presumptions and assumes that this is where they start like the theory that Nicole is the person who killed Kara. So they're actually looking for her as the killer. How did the bad karma come up? The sheriff said it, right? And then
Let
Lisbon
me
said,
look. Okay, so the sheriff thinks that Nicole did this, and Lisbon questions that, and the sheriff says, "Who knows what others are capable of? She sure had built up a lot of bad karma, but I don't know.
hmm.
She seemed to be turning her life around."
And then Lisbon says bad karma doesn't have an expiration date, and Jane says it does, and that he's counting on it. And I thought the intro music here sounded a little bit different. I thought that was interesting because I don't know. I had thought they had set the intro music by this point, but I guess not. So maybe Blake Neely was playing around with it a little still. So Rigsby and Van Pelt go to talk to Kara's parents, and the mother doesn't have a lot of good things to say about the men in the area. She says that Nicole didn't, or Kara didn't seem to approve of Nicole's fiance, but that she didn't have a boyfriend of her own, and that she could have had anyone she wanted, but there's only, what did she say, rednecks and hippies.
Yes.
So while they're doing that, Jane and Lisbon are still walking in the forest while they're searching with the dog, and they've been walking a while. I guess Jane had been asking about how the dog manages to follow a trail, and he talks about skin cells or something, right?
This really just it feels like they're just poking fun at these small town deputies because this guy seems like he doesn't know anything. He's like, "The dog knows everything. I'm just following the dog."
I was a little confused about what he was talking about too. Like, if somebody gets in a car, how are they like shedding skin cells
Right,
that you can
right.
follow?
I was like, "What do they usually use this dog for? Or is it usually to find lost people since it's a remote area?" It sounds like it might be a bit of a tourist spot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a decent theory. I didn't really think about that. Yeah. They must have to search for lost hikers and things like that. He's a cute dog. Very droopy.
Yeah.
Are you a dog person or cat person?
I prefer cats, but I'm allergic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wasn't always.
Actually, I think I am too with cats because when I went away to college, and I came back home after my first semester, I was like, my nose was so stuffy when I came home. I was like, oh my
Oh,
god, am I allergic to cats? So after walking a while, Jane says that Nicole is probably a captive because they've come too far, so she had to have been in a vehicle. And he asks that the searchers be gathered up so that he can question them. The sheriff resists, but because he insists he trusts everyone because, like you said, it's a small town, so he kind of knows everybody, but he agrees. And then Cho and Rigsby apprehend, or they Troy and Rigsby go to the tavern where the party was to go look for Nicole's fiance, and I didn't understand, but why is he covered in mud?
I think he's been looking for
Yeah,
Nicole
yeah,
on his own. So he's just come back to get something quick, and so he's all dirty from searching.
yeah. I feel like there must have been some kind of scene that got cut though, because he's not just it's not just mud on like his arms and things like that. He's got mud all over his back.
Yeah, it
Like
kind
he
of
fell, right?
yeah, like the script kind of implies that he's mud up to his armpits, like he's been wading
Yeah.
maybe in dirty water or something. They talk about the river a lot early in this episode.
Uh
They show it 3 times, like, they really want you to dig into this river significance.
yeah, I feel like they must have shown him like with the search party while Lisbon and Jane were out there. Maybe he fell and they pointed him out and said, "Who is that?" Or and they said that that's the fiance or something like that. But yeah, his alibi is that he was passed out drunk in the tavern. And I wanted to note that this tavern actually gets used very, very often in the show because I think it's on the Warner Brothers lot, and we'll just call it Sullivan's Tavern from now on since this is its first appearance. But for rewatchers, like I'm pretty sure this is where Lisbon's anniversary party is. They redress it up a lot, but yeah, you can kind of recognize the basic infrastructure inside.
So, next, Jane does the group reading. He pulls together all the rescue party, and the sheriff's there, and there's some park rangers there, and he tells them all to raise their hands. He even gets the sheriff and Lisbon to raise their hands. They're like, "Come on, we're all gonna do it." And then he just says, "Whoever killed Kara and abducted Nicole, lower your right hand right now." And like nobody moves at all, and it's just really awkward. And then Jane says, well, that usually works. Never mind, pretend we didn't do that."
Yeah, so what was the point of what he did here? It's lost on me.
I think part of what it's setting up for the viewer is that they've mentioned that, or I think Jane and Lisbon pointed out that the killer is probably inserting himself into the search party. And so
Mhm.
it's a way to just get everybody there because the killer is there.
Yeah, yeah. And
But
he's pretty distinctive too. It was funny though because I was like, "What is he doing? Is he trying to like make the sheriff think he's incompetent so that he disarms him somehow?" But I don't know. Because you're talking about like what the show is doing for the
right,
viewers, but what is Jane doing?
right,
Like what is his
right.
game plan here?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just awkward.
Next, they go to the hospital where the doctor tells Lisbon, Jane, and the sheriff that Nicole is generally okay physically, but mentally is a different story as she's suffering from a psychotic shock and she has no memory. Uh, the sheriff once again assumes that she killed Kara and that her memory loss, she's just faking it, and that he's going to charge her. And Lisbon steps in here and she's like, I'm in charge of this investigation. I get to decide when to charge people. And like I said, she's very territorial in the early season, but in this case, I think she's just doing it so that they can it just makes sense for them to just keep investigating before they jump the gun, right? So
Right, yeah, she's protecting Nicole because they don't have any of the facts at this point.
oh, yeah, I've skipped this part. The sheriff had gotten a call after Jane's group reading and saying that Nicole was found in a convenience store. She was bloody and dirty, and she was carrying a knife.
This scene is so distinctive too when they
Yeah,
show her, like, sitting on the floor of the convenience store just stuffing her face.
and she's like holding the knife up in the air. It was kind of weird.
Oh, choices were made.
But yeah, so the sheriff confirms that the murder weapon had Carl's blood on it. This is another like TV speeding up thing of crime procedurals where I don't think they would have had DNA results the same day. But
No.
yeah, it's one of those hand wavy things that you gotta let slide when you watch police procedurals because everything's got to get sped up. But the doctor allows them to talk to her if they're gentle, and you know right then that Jane is not going to be gentle.
Right.
He always does the exact opposite of what he's told. He's like a child. You tell him don't do something, he goes and does it. And so before he goes in, he confirms with the doctor that she doesn't know that her best friend is dead. When they go in and talk to her, she only remembers the party. She's asking where her fiance is and where Kara is. And then Jane just blurts out that she's dead. She got stabbed to death. And oh my God. He can be kind of crude and tasteless. And it's kind of weird because he seemed to be like defending her, like trying to say that I don't think she did it. So and then he just comes in here, he just but he's still kind of gentle, so he gets really close to her and he pushes her pretty hard. And I think he's just trying to gauge, like, it kind of seemed like he was trying to show the sheriff that her amnesia is real and she actually is traumatized. So basically all she remembers is that it was at night and they got pulled over because she was feeling sick and that a man approached. There was a loud rushing sound and
Like
then
a
her.
river.
Yeah, like running water. But then when Jane is talking to her, her heart rate spikes and the doctor rushes in and kicks them out. And outside, the sheriff still isn't buying it, but Jane insists that he thinks that she's a victim. And Lisbon orders Rigsby to search possible locations where she might have been kept since Jane thinks that she was held somewhere. And there's like a kind of like a face off between Jane and the sheriff where he tells her that someone's going to try to silence her and to guard her well.
And the sheriff's like, "Of course I will. That's my job." Like, right.
So the team goes to the sheriff's office where they're watching video from the party, and Jane. Actually, this is probably what you meant about the observation skills. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Jane notices that Jason seems to have a thing for Kara just because of where he's focusing the camera, because I guess he was the one taking the video. And then Lisbon notices an older guy. He's pretty not subtle at all. He's in the background, just like ew, giving them looks. Anyone could have noticed that guy.
I
But
don't think he
he's
was invited to this party.
yeah, I don't think so either. But he's wearing a cap, and this is another TV thing where they're like, "Can you clear that up?" And then like they zoom in and they like tap something on the on the keyboard, and all magically becomes high res. That's not how it works, actually. But yeah, the cap is advertising the same makeup brand that was scattered all over Carl's car in the back. Rigsby doesn't find anything, and Jane goes back to the hospital. And Nicole wakes up, and he just asks her outright if she killed Kara, and she says she doesn't think she did, which I thought was a good line for them to stick in because it's like she's not saying she didn't, she doesn't think she did, so it kind of just cements that she doesn't remember. So
Yeah, and this next part is kind of interesting. There's a commotion out in the hallway because the fiance, Jason, has come to see Nicole, and it's the park rangers who are standing guard at this time, and so they stop him.
yeah.
They say he was sneaking in to see her, and he's like, "No, I was just walking. I was just walking. Like, she's my fiance."
Actually, yeah, like some of them are wearing blue and some of them are wearing brown. So is the brown the sheriff and the blue are the park rangers? So was Kyle a park ranger?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, okay, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't pick up on that. Okay. All right. So Cho and Rigsby head to the tavern and I guess Van Pelt too, actually, because she's waits outside.
Yes.
They find the cosmetics guy. His name is Rulon. They find him in the bathroom, and he attacks them, and then they start fighting. And she's just standing outside awkwardly because
Yep.
she does she doesn't
She's
want
like,
to go in. But I
should
think
I? Yeah.
should I
So like
help?
they give Van Pelt a big moment here because they've gone so far from, she's always stuck manning the phones or whatever. And here she gets to go along with the guys for this bust and she ends up saving their butts.
And I gotta say, oh my god, they were like struggling and like falling all over that bathroom. Ew.
Well, and they also confront him while he still has his fly down.
Oh
Like,
god.
oh, more choices were made.
I hope they went back to their motel rooms and they changed their clothes because a lot of surfaces were touched in this scene. Don't they even like tackle the guy on the ground? Ugh,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they're rolling
gross.
all over the bathroom.
Gross. And it's a tavern bathroom too,
Oh,
even worse. Oh. The men's bathroom doesn't even have like a printed sign. It's like handwritten.
yeah. Oh,
Actually, doesn't Van Pelt make a snide remark too? Then she go, "Good job, guys."
yeah, she does. Nice job, guys, she says. She does let the guys, like, pick him up and cuff him and drag him out, and she's just like, "Good job. You
Well,
got it."
yeah, because she doesn't want to touch him. That guy's
I
been
know.
all over the floor. So he's sitting with Nicole and he hears another patient playing the piano and he flashes back to Angela and Charlotte playing the same song. This is actually the first actual glimpse we get of them. Yeah.
Yep.
And he looks like a combination of happy and sad. Very
Yeah,
wistful.
wistful, yeah.
Yeah. But then his cell phone rings and I think it's Lisbon telling him to come watch the interview. So this Rulon guy was very icky. I mean, the
Yeah.
things he and like Van Pelt is trying to stare him to death.
Yeah, she is totally creeped out by this guy, and he picks up on that. He knows that he's a
well,
creep, I think.
well, also he's got a bone to pick with her because she did crack him right in the nuts. So,
Yep. Yep.
but yeah, he basically says that he gave Carl a lot of makeup because I guess he doesn't look like a makeup salesman.
No, well, I think he's more of a delivery
Distributor?
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, okay. But he says he gave her a lot of free products in the hopes of, getting her to have sex with him. And for the guys out there, given, like, the amount of makeup that was in the back of her car, he actually gave her a lot
A
of
lot.
yeah, that much makeup is expensive. Like, I would say in the hundreds, so because, yeah, I'm unless it's, like, cheap makeup, but it kinda sounds like it's, like, a, kind of a
Yeah, and I think this might be a plot point where Jane realizes that Kara wasn't exactly the saint that everyone says because she did not have to accept makeup from this guy.
yeah, yeah.
She coulda just blown him off, but she did take his product.
And you can't really argue that she didn't realize what he wanted because
Right.
women know these kinds of things. So she took it knowing, I think. But
S
that doesn't mean that she did owe him anything, but at the same
Right,
time,
right.
that explains why he expected, I guess, certain things. But during this interview, Jane finds an iPod in the evidence bags and he pockets it. Rulon is continuing to mock Van Pelt. He even makes this creepy comment about how, hey, I can give you makeup too. I was like, ew. But he doesn't have an alibi. But he also he actually does a really good job facing off with Cho. He doesn't back down.
Right. Yeah. No, he has confidence, but also when Jane digs into it, he shows kind of some remorse, not or shame about his appearance and
Yeah.
how he comes off. But at the same time, I think he knows exactly like he's saying he tells Van Pelt, "You're pretty. You don't understand how it is for guys like
Yeah.
me." And that's a big justification as well. He just has his excuses for why he is the way he is, but he's leaning into it pretty hard, I'd say.
He's basically an incel, right? We didn't have this word back then, I don't think. For those listening, incel means involuntary celibate, and that's basically what he says he is. He says that because of his appearance,
Mhm.
and women's expectations and things like that, he can't get women to like him. So So the team has a huddle, and Cho says that they can't really hold him because they have no proof. Because the guy had like brought up TV and how juries watch a lot of crime TV and they expect to
Yeah.
see everything, like all this evidence, like DNA and all kinds and murder weapon and things like that. Which I found actually amusing because do you think that's true? Because I do watch a lot of crime TV and I would
Yeah.
probably go in with a lot of inaccuracies in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's valid.
So while they're having their little huddle, they ask Jane what to do, but he's not really listening because he's listening to Carl's iPod. And he says that when they finally get his attention, he's like, "Oh, I'll let him go."
Yeah, he's already dismissed him.
And that becomes like a running joke throughout the early seasons where he's just like, "Oh, yeah, he can go." They're like, "No,
Yep.
wait." Although he doesn't tell it to the actual guy, he does it a lot worse when he tells the actual person, "Oh, yeah,
Right.
you can go. We're done with you."
Right.
But I guess he got a read on Rulon. He says that he was telling the truth and that he was blushing and he lied about his weight. But Lisbon wants to keep him, and that's when she actually notices that he probably wouldn't have that kind of iPod. It was a girly looking iPod. She scolds him, and he says he'll put it back, but he doesn't because, like we said, he's a man child.
But this was a sleight of hand because he pretended to put it back in the bag and he held up the bag, but it wasn't inside the bag. He put it in his pocket.
But like Lisbon barely looks at it because he holds up
Right.
the bag and it's
Right.
clearly not in there.
Right. It has other stuff in there, so he's just like, "Hey."
Jane goes back to the hospital and he sneaks Nicole out after giving her clothes to put on. And then, so they do let Rulon go, but they follow him to a different tavern. And then they're outside. I really like this scene because this is a scene where Rigsby is hungry. He's searching the car for food. And like Lisbon's like, there's nothing in here. You clean this out. And he holds up a ketchup packet and he's going to suck on that. Oh, Rigsby's stomach. Oh my god.
Oh, goodness. Now, to his credit, in the script, this scene is broken up a little bit. So he finds the ketchup packet and dismisses it. But then in the following scene, they've been there
For
longer
a
and he
while.
gets desperate enough to take the ketchup, to eat the ketchup. But as it's aired, he finds that he's like celebrating it and he just starts eating ketchup.
I have to admit, I have sucked on a ketchup packet, although not for a meal. I think it was just to get more ketchup out. But while they're sitting in the car, Lisbon hears a humming, and it's from the nearby traffic on the highway, I guess. And then that makes her think that, oh, maybe it wasn't running water that Nicole heard, and it was traffic. So Rigsby realizes that that means that the cabins that he was searching were on the wrong side of town. So he's going to go and search. They're going to renew a search on this side instead, and meanwhile, Jane has taken Nicole back to the forest and he's turning on the iPod playlist and he could search the. It was funny because they do this a lot in there since she asked, "Oh, are you psychic? How do you know that this was the song we are listening to?" And he just says, "Oh, I just checked it in in the history for the time that they were out there." But as like the song is playing, Nicole starts remembering things and she feels sick, and so Jane has to stop the car and she goes outside, and then he pushes her hard again, but this time she actually remembers, and he seems to have picked up on the fact that Carl had a secret that she was telling her, and that's why she was sick. So, but I'm not sure what made him come to this deduction.
Yeah, this episode, they really kinda just string you along. It's not as clear cut how they make all their connections, and I feel like Jane at this point just really feels that Nicole is innocent and
Hmm.
the sheriff doesn't, and he just knows that she is the key, that her memory will unlock everything, and so he really
Hmm.
prioritizes that aspect.
Okay, so she remembers with Jane's coaching that Kara had told her that she didn't want her to marry Jason because he was no good. And the reason she knew he was no good was because she was sleeping with him. Not a very good best friend. Uh,
Nope.
but Jane pushes her some more, and so she remembers that she got out of the car to throw up, and the car tried to get her to get back in because a car had approached and a man came up and he actually punched her, and like I think he knocked her out.
Yeah, it knocked out Nicole, yeah, and then starts stabbing Kara.
Yeah, it was kind of brutal. I mean, he
Yeah.
just goes straight for her. He just goes straight to murder.
Yeah, he does.
But he carries her and he drives her somewhere. And I actually didn't pick up on this in my previous rewatches, but while he's pushing Nicole to remember, she's resisting and she says she doesn't want to remember. And he says, "I've been where you're going. I know how you feel." And so this made me think like he must have done this on his own, right? Right? Because like it'll come out later that Jane went through a period of a mental breakdown after the death of his wife and daughter, and so I don't know. Do you think he had a point where he had blocked it out and he had to like force himself to remember or something like that?
It's possible. For sure, he had the emotional all he's had all these emotions
Yeah.
coming to terms with their death.
At this point, Lisbon is out searching cabins with the guy Kyle. I had written him down as Deputy Kyle, but I guess he's Ranger Kyle. So
Yeah, I think so. That's yeah, they don't really introduce us to
yeah,
Kyle.
yeah. But he is the guy that Lisbon kind of like butted heads with in the beginning. She kind of like
Yeah, a little bit.
shot
Yeah.
him down.
Yeah, he was sounding and like in the opening scene, he sounded like he knew everything that had happened in the case, and she was like, "We don't know anything. Erase that. We're starting fresh. We're finding our own evidence."
But it turns out he's the killer.
He's a killer.
Yeah. But yeah, so because the sheriff calls and he's pissed. He calls Lisbon and tells her what Jane did, how he stole Nicole from the hospital. But meanwhile, Lisbon is searching cabins with this guy Kyle, and he's ignoring her calls because she's in the middle of remembering. Which usually like it's kind of irritating when he ignores Lisbon's calls. But I think in this case it was justified because she was right in the middle of remembering everything.
Yeah.
So but she remembers waking up in a shed and struggling to open the door, and then they reveal that, like we said, that the killer is Ranger Kyle, and so that makes you think back to like the opening scene where he was making all these assumptions, but I guess he wasn't really making assumptions. He was just kind of trying to misdirect them.
Yeah.
So she says that he tried to rape her. Not to make light of this, but this is the second kick to the nuts in this episode that we get to see. Family jewels of men are not having a good time this episode. But once he gets her to remember all this, he calls Lisbon and he gives her a pretty good description of the killer. He's tall, he's well built, he's got brown hair and glasses. And so right away, like Lisbon is with this guy, and so you can kind of like see him in the background. You're just like, oh my god, she's with him. But I mean, we already know that it's him because they reveal his face. But Lisbon is very snarky because she's pissed because of what he
Oh,
did.
yeah.
She orders him to go back and apologize to the sheriff. They hang up, and I don't know why they keep searching. I guess because they still need to find the crime scene,
Eh, I
maybe.
I guess. I mean, we still don't have a name, and so we're still looking for the actual
Oh, the guy. Oh, yeah, the guy. Yeah, I forgot for a second that only we know that she's with the guy. Oops.
So at this point, we kind of get our claim from Jane that he'd kidnapped Nicole without telling Lisbon so that she would have deniability, which becomes a major reoccurrence throughout the show.
Yeah. I didn't tell you this because. So Jane actually listens to her this time. He's driving her back to the sheriff's or back to the hospital so that he can apologize. Well, I don't know. That's debatable. I don't know if he's going to apologize to him.
I doubt it.
He's driving her back to the hospital. Let's go with that. But he gets her to remember something else, that the guy smelled like pineapple. And then he calls Lisbon and tells her that. And she's like, pineapple? Really? She's mad. She don't want to hear anything. But then she remembers that Kyle has a pineapple car freshener in him hanging from his window
Dun dun
or from his
dun.
mirror. And so she knows she's in trouble. But what she tells Jane is not very secretive. Any
No.
killer would know. Oh, she knows. She's like, "Hey, tell Rigsby that Teresa needs his help. I'm at this address."
Oh, me? I'm just here with the killer at this address.
But here we get the motive. He had a thing for Nicole. He didn't want her to marry Jason. And they fire at each other, and Jane calls out for her. And he confirms that he calls Rigsby, but how does he call Rigsby if he's still on the phone with her?
Right. So this is clarified in the script that after he talks to Lisbon, he puts her on hold and calls Rigsby and then transfers back,
Uh,
which is not at all clear because yeah, we see kind of that Lisbon kept her phone on,
yeah,
but would Jane have known to keep his side of it open?
I don't know. So this, what you said just made me realize that I don't know how to do that on my phone.
Right. Right. It's
I
like would
should I should that seems like a useful thing. I need to go figure out how to put someone on hold and make another call. So I'm gonna show my age here. But back in the day, we used to call this Wonder Phone. Do you remember
no, I don't think so.
that? Or maybe that's what they called it where I grew up. But yeah, like it was basically call waiting. They called it Wonder Phone, where you could put someone on hold and call someone else and connect them to your call.
Wow.
So Lisbon, Jane's idea is that she throw her BlackBerry out on the floor, and he yells so that the guy gets distracted, so she can run outside of the house. And Rigsby is magically outside. I don't know where he was, but he sure got there
He
fast.
got there really fast. It's such a great moment though.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, everything's fine now, and this basically the end of the episode. The team is packing up and they're leaving. Nicole comes to thank Jane, and they have like a nice moment, right? He tells her that
They
eventually
do.
she'll start to remember the good things. Because, I mean, yeah, if you think about it, like what happened to her, it's pretty horrible. I mean, her best
Yeah.
friend slept with her fiance, who she's probably not going to marry anymore because
Yeah,
he was,
they don't give us any closure on that.
yeah. And her best friend is dead. And oh, she had a traumatic experience. She got kidnapped. Someone tried to rape her. And, oh my God.
Yeah. So she hugged Jane and Jane hugged her back. Like there was
Yeah.
no drama in this hug, like in future
Yeah.
hugs.
And yeah, they don't really establish. They haven't really established this at this point, right? That Jane doesn't like to talk to family or anything like that.
Right.
But
Right.
I guess because they had a connection, right? He helped her recover her memory, and she was a victim. So
And it ends very positively with Kara's family is basically say collecting Nicole
yeah,
like
yeah,
she is their daughter. Like
yeah,
they're gonna take care of her, which is so positive, so wholesome.
yeah. It was nice, yeah, because I mean she needs the support. So
Yeah.
I think at the beginning they said that her dad was a meth addict and didn't really feed her and things like that. So
Yeah.
she's had a hard life. So but yeah, so while they're leaving, Lisbeth says, I can't believe he fell for that cell phone thing. Jane claims, I invented it right there. And she says
Yep.
she's seen it a dozen times on TV, but I don't know if I've ever seen that on TV actually.
And Jane's all, "Ah, but where have you seen that in real life?" It's like, "Right here. Right here we saw it in real life."
Okay, cold reading. What point does Gene crack the case? I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, he doesn't really like he doesn't figure out who the killer is, but he
He
gets her to
gets
remember. Yeah,
right. It's he enables the discovery of the killer.
he unlocks her memory. But I also feel like in a town that small, Nicole would have just known who he was, right?
But he didn't have she didn't have his name.
Yeah, yeah. She just had a description of him,
So
so
yeah,
yeah.
it's really like what exactly was their relationship? Yeah, I don't know. But to me, I feel
And I mean they had to have crossed paths enough where he was like
right,
he liked her from afar kind of thing.
right.
Yeah, I
S
don't know.
so did he also hang out at this tavern and just watch her
Like the
without
creepy guy.
approaching right, but didn't approach her?
Maybe he was a lot better at creeping on her than the other guy.
Yeah, I feel like this killer is just kind of like they build it up to some degree, but it almost feels like you need a rewatch just to see where he shows up in the episode
Yeah.
and how he does put himself into the investigation. He is one of the people guarding or protecting Nicole at the hospital. He's asking Lisbon if she has information about the case. It's like, but it's so subtle, and then just here he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there had to have been other backstory that they had written about him because, I mean, just based on the flashback, he goes from wanting to take her to murdering her best friend. It's kind of brutal. And I guess
Yeah,
given what he had said, like he wanted Nicole, he didn't want her to marry the guy. Maybe he knew that Kara was sleeping with her fiance, so was mad at her too. Because I just feel like he went from 0 to 50 just
yeah,
stabbing her right in the forest like that. Like, whoa.
yeah,
Like you don't normal not that killers are normal, but like if you're looking for like a motive, like why would he just bring that big ass knife and then just get out of the car and just stab her right there? I mean, all she was really doing was running around the car to go check on Nicole, right, and try to help her. But yeah, I just feel like the murder came out of nowhere. So I feel like there had to have been some kind of backstory where he knew what Kara was doing, so he was mad at her specifically.
yeah. And maybe he'd been drinking at this tavern party as well.
Yeah, yeah,
And we really don't give us that backstory at all.
yeah. So there's things missing that I think we need to fill in.
Yeah, so I would say that the episode deviates from the usual formula in that way,
Mhm.
but there's no scenes of the CBI. This is all in this small town. So the team, we see a lot of the team together. Like they all
Yeah.
interrogate the makeup guy. They all interrogate him together. They're all hanging out in the
Yeah.
room. It's not an interrogation room. They're just in some, they're out kind of,
Office.
yeah, in like this office space. And I feel like a lot of the parts about this episode that I enjoy are like these team moments, or
Yeah.
how Jane, while he is kind of relentless, interrogating with his interactions with Nicole, he's really pushing her hard. But you also see a lot of empathy there,
Mhm.
and that he's also being careful with her, that he understands the trauma that she's going through, and there is an element where you can see that he's being gentle in his way.
Yeah. So have you ever gone on the Warner Brothers studio tour?
No.
Yeah, so I've been on that tour a couple times, and the town scenes looked like the Warner Brothers lot. And I think they used it in an earlier episode too. I can't remember. But yeah, so I found their ending conversation amusing, where like Liz been saying she's seen it a dozen times on TV, and I was just like, oh, I've seen this scene or this setting a dozen times on TV. It's very distinctive. Like this set is actually another thing that we'll end up seeing multiple times throughout the show because I guess they come back and they usually when it's like a small California town, you'll notice that a lot of the architecture and stuff is pretty similar. But yeah.
So I noted that this episode has multiple elements that get recycled into future episodes. We have Jane's interaction with the dog, that he trusts the dog more than he trusts the handler, and just lets the dog do his job. That comes up again in a couple episodes in the future. This episode has the victim who escapes but has memory loss. That happens again in season 2.
Mhm.
And we also have this kind of trucker character who tries to get close to the victim, and that happens again in season 3.
Which one was that?
That's in Red Moon with
Uh
a Red John episode.
Okay, rewatch checklist. Just been moments. Not too many here. It's more like, like them like working together kind of thing. I did notice that they stood side by side kind of distinctively while they were interviewing Roland, but that's about it. What about you?
I feel like the moment where he kind of defends her to the sheriff, saying that she's not really a morning person, she'll improve, kind of feels like he knows her.
He knows her. Yeah. Okay, favorite lines. Mine is the bad karma line. I've actually liked that line for that's one of my favorite lines from season 1 for a long time. Lisbon says bad karma doesn't have an expiration date. And he goes, actually it does. According to traditional Buddhist teachings, I'm counting on it. So I looked that up and I guess that's kind of true. There's like different beliefs or different types of Buddhist beliefs. But basically that that you can constantly work on your karma and that you take your karma with you into the next life. So
Hmm. My favorite line was Cho's zinger of the week when they're talking to Rulan and Rulan says, "It's not my fault I look like this." And Cho says, "It is actually. With a low carb diet and exercise, you could look very different."
there's been smirks here, yeah.
And Rulan's like, "Hey, I got a glandular problem."
Cho is ruthless sometimes. All right, so we'll be right back with our Memory Palace quiz. All right, we're back and we have a new Memory Palace quiz, or at least I have a new Memory Palace quiz for you because Karen's going to take it with you. And I think,
Woohoo!
am I stressing you out with this? Are you like
No,
paying? Okay, good.
I took notes. Let's see if I got. I'm trying to anticipate your questions.
So you can check out our Instagram account, Rom-Com Detectives, for a bonus question on Sunday. The way this works is I will ask 5 questions of increasing difficulty about the episode we just discussed, and you'll have 5 seconds to come up with an answer. Question 1. What does Jane take from the deputy to help Nicole escape the hospital?
His hat.
Yeah, good job. Okay, question 2. What color was Kara's iPod?
Um, I want to say it's like a kind of a blue, girly blue, ice blue. Is it blue?
No, it's purple. All
No.
right, we're getting harder here. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Question 3. What kind of makeup does Rulon hint at Van Pelt he can give her for sex?
I want to say lipstick.
Yeah, that's right. He asks her something like, "What's your lipstick inventory like?" or something like that. Or lipstick supply. Ew. Gross.
Ugh.
All right, question 4. What song on the piano triggers Jane's memory of Angela and Charlotte?
Oh, that's a hard one. Um, I know it's a classical piece. I know, but I don't know.
it's
I you
for it's
Oh,
for
that's right, it's
Elise.
Release. I
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that.
Okay, hardest question. Are you
Okay.
ready?
Oh,
Question 5. What is the name of the makeup brand that was found in Kara's car?
you always get me with the names.
It was on his van too.
Oh,
See, now you know. Always gotta pay attention to vans. Van logos.
last week I was writing down all these names to quiz myself, and that didn't get touched on at all. Starts with a C.
No.
I don't know.
It's earthly pure. I would just like to say that I would probably fail my own quiz. So don't feel bad if you're not getting very many of these. But I mean, it's a memory palace quiz, so
It's
it's
gotta be
meant
hard.
it's gotta be hard because Jane would get these questions. All right. Any last thoughts?
Oh, I would say okay. I feel like this episode is like it's not one I usually ever would choose to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I enjoy like there's just a few scenes that really cement this one as one to watch. I really like the "Did you look under the car?" moment.
Mhm.
I really enjoy Van Pelt kicking the guy in the bathroom, and, I really like Cho's zinger and their
uh,
interrogation of Rulon.
I think for me, the standout is the bad karma thing, and then also Rigsby's ketchup scene.
Yeah, yeah.
That really encapsulates his constant hunger. His Okay, if you're enjoying Rom-Com Detectives, be sure to leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We want to thank the people who have given us a rating so far. We really appreciate it. For our Spotify listeners, leave us a comment for our question of the week and tell us what you think Jane was doing with his failed group reading. What was the point of that? Tell us what you think. And if you'd like to join additional conversations about The Mentalist, you can visit the Mentalist subreddit at reddit.com/r/the Mentalist. And you can join the Mentalist Bullpen Discord server linked in the sidebar. But I do want to say that since today is April 1st, I posted a April Fool's gag to the sub, and I said that we're going to be called the Ventalist from now on, and you can only talk about why Red John was very disappointing, or why this and this was why Red John was bad, or why this person was better as Red John. Basically, what the sub is almost already like. I'm kidding. We talk about a lot of other things.
Classic.
Sometimes it feels like all people post about is why they didn't like Red John. But yeah, to contact me and Karin, you can email us at host@romcomdetectives.com. Follow us on Instagram or Threads, and actually Blue Sky too, I forgot to mention that, at Romcom Detectives, or you can leave us a voicemail or text message at 1-650-733-XOXO or 9696. This episode of Rom-Com Detectives was recorded on April 1st, 2025. Rom-Com Detectives Mentalist Unit is co-hosted by Crystal Watanabe and Karin Lubbers and is produced by Pico's House. Thanks for listening. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.